How about Jamil behind the scenes, pressing the buttons? Okay, we are live. Welcome to the 2025 Black Canyon Ultras presented by Hoka. This is the Shakeout Show. My name is Dylan Bowman, joined by an amazing panel here on the far end, Mr. Chris Warden. Big round of applause for Chris. Next to him, the great Zach Malcolm. Good to see you again, as always. For those joining us digitally, we are broadcasting live here at Chalene's on 17th. The vibe is electric the day before the 100K. How many people are racing this weekend here? Show of hands. Yeah. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Of course, Black Canyon is one of the most important races in trail running. We are so proud to be here. Myself, Corinne, Ryan here from Free Trail. We are very proud to be collaborating with Mountain Outpost and the Aravaipa team as always. So a big thank you to them for welcoming us here. And of course, a big thank you to the team behind the scenes, which right now consists of only Jamil Curry behind the scenes here. The big boss man, not afraid to roll up his sleeves and do the grunt work. Jamil's going to actually join us here on stage for a short interview too, so don't go anywhere. To our audience here digitally and in person, quick run of show. We're going to do some Black Canyon history. We're going to talk about the course. We're going to talk to Jam Jam. We're going to do the 100K women's preview, the men's preview. We'll make some predictions. We're also going to talk about the 50K because the 50K is starting to get pretty exciting here at Black Canyon year after year. And before we get to it, just a quick shout out. Tomorrow, 6:30 a.m., the live stream starts.
We are going live at 6:30 a.m. tomorrow, doing a little bit of a preview. Race starts at 7. Yeah. Wave 1.
Yeah, so and then 6:30 again on Sunday for the 50K, as I understand it.
Exactly. 6:30 a.m. we are going live. 7 o'clock is the actual race start, and we will be going through the top 10 females for that one. But we are going until 4 a.m. Sunday morning for the 100K. So every 100K finisher is going to get their time to shine.
It's an ultra marathon here on the media side too. Quick final thoughts, building off what Zach just said. If you're watching us digitally, you better smash that subscribe button, please. Please show some love to the thing. Go play fantasy. Get your predictions in. Pick 5 deep for the men and women. Fantasy.freetrail.com for your chance to win some hot new swag from Hoka and the Free Trail crew. Kicking into it after a long preamble, I'm going to throw it to you first here, Mr. Warden. You're very familiar with the history here at Black Canyon. The first race was in 2014, 100 kilometers tomorrow, roughly 61.5 miles, 6,200 feet of climbing, a net downhill course. Tell the people a little bit about the history, the course, what makes it unique.
Well, I think what makes this race unique is that very rarely will you find a race where so many people tend to just blow themselves up in the second half of the race. The first half of this race, as people will find, is very runnable. It's very smooth, downhill steadily until you hit Bumblebee. Then you're actually...
Don't PR your 50K.
No.
Please?
No. This is the wrong race to do that. And what we find is that, yeah, a lot of times people will stroll into Bumblebee feeling like $1 million. Then they'll head through Gloriana Mine, and now that Deep Canyon Ranch is the 50K point, previously it was Black Canyon City at the 60K point that was kind of the crux of the race. So many times people would come into that 60K mark, and all of a sudden their fortunes had turned, and then that last 25 miles become pretty rough because that's where all the climbing begins. The race has got a big rear end compared to the front end. So I think that one of the unique things about this race is that you can't really feel comfortable in your picks until about maybe 20 miles out. I mean, we saw it a few years ago. Scott Traer made a furious charge, was probably about 14th or 15th place at Black Canyon City, and over the last 25 miles surged from that point up into a golden ticket position. I think that's one of the things that's most unique about this race.
Zach, Corinne, build off of Warden's points here. I just want to say for the audience, the current course records here in the 100K, 7 hours, 30 minutes set by Hayden Hawks last year. And then 2023 on the women's side, Keely Henninger ran 8 hours, 45 minutes. We'll get to our picks as to whether or not those are in jeopardy. Zach, maybe starting with you, if you were approaching the course this weekend, how would you be thinking about it?
I would do it the opposite way that I did it in 2015, which is not run the first half super hard. I can promise you you're going to feel great. And then you hit that Black Canyon point and you go to make those climbs. And immediately, at least for me, I turned around and was like, not today. Came right home. So it is one of those things where you gotta run that like conservative hard effort where you're never comfortable, but you're never like really hurting yourself, right? I mean, that's how I'd approach this race. And typically you get, this is Phoenix. This is hotter than most people get to train, right? So a lot of us at home are not getting to train in the 70s, 80s, that kind of stuff. So you normally get to like douse yourself with some water. This year, there is no water on the course. Like these streams and rivers are dry. So it is gonna be one of those situations where getting yourself wet in the aid stations and staying cool is gonna be really important because it's not gonna be a cold day tomorrow.
Yeah, it might start cool tomorrow morning at the high school, but it's going to get hot really, really quickly. I remember it getting hot deceptively early the last time I ran here. And I will say that I think I cried almost every step from Table Mesa to the finish when I ran. So I'd avoid maybe going out too hard. The other piece of that puzzle, too, is that I think it gets rockier in the final, like, 20-plus kilometers of the race, too. I decidedly remember kicking many, many rocks and maybe using choice profanity out loud when I did so. So I would just say, like, pick your feet up. It's gonna, like, it is a hard final 20K in that regard, and people will run it well. We saw Craig Hunt last year go from 8th to 4th in the final 20K, running the fastest ever split, 3 minutes faster than Hayden Hawks in the same race. So you can run well if you give yourself the opportunity to do so. So don't cash checks that your legs are gonna bounce later on.
To kind of play off of what Chris Warden said, some runners like a big back end. And take advantage of it when you can get it, right? If that's how you choose to run, go for it.
Yeah, well, and both Scott Traer and Craig Hunt are in the race tomorrow, too. So if they're out of the mix halfway, look out to the front of that men's race because they've obviously shown they know how to do it. Building off what Chris said, as I was just like thinking about the last handful of years here at Black Canyon, what I feel like the course really does is keep it really close really late. Being at Table Mesa, roughly mile 50 aid station, the final crew access point. I remember last year the men's top 10 battle was absolutely electric. Also, Becca Wendell and Rachel Drake were separated by like 90 seconds or 2 minutes there at Table Mesa. Remembering back to 2023, Keely, Ida, and Heather Jackson were all like nearly together until mile 58, 59, until Keely
With,
finally.
like, Anna Cassius and Shaquillano like chasing
Right.
too.
And then that same year, Tom Evans, Anthony Costales sort of had that toe-to-toe battle. The year before, Tyler kind of ran through, or no, Trueheart was the year before when he went wire to wire. But 2021, I guess it was, when Tyler sort of ran through the field. So
Where Craig Hunt had a disastrous day. Which
Yeah,
we'll
so-
talk
Yeah,
about
he
later.
tore his calf after leaving Table Mesa, he came back. So he was leading the race at that point, and I was out there at the time. That was the first year I think we did our live stream, and all of a sudden, maybe 5 minutes later, he comes back into the aid station, and we're like, oh, this has got to be terrible.
yeah.
So, and Craig, of course, last year with another very close near miss, finishing about 3.5 minutes back of that golden ticket with Chris Myers claiming the last one, that's one of the things I'm really looking forward to is to see what Craig Hunt does this year.
Yeah. So again, it's a speed trap, folks. Pay attention to the race tomorrow. If you're running the 100K, like they said, don't set your 50-mile or 50K PR early in the day. Save some gas for the back half of the course. But with fewer of those big climbs, it means exciting racing at the front.
I just want to add one last thing, too. This course change happened last year, and I think it will continue to impact the field based on how crewing goes, no crewing goes at Bumblebee. You end up with that like 20-mile section where there's obviously aid stations, but you're not seeing your personal crew, and that can definitely throw people for a tizzy out there. So I would just say be cognizant when you're planning out what your crew is going to be doing, because that is a 20-mile section where in a fast 100K that can add up in a big way.
Yeah. Okay, so before we bring Jamil up here for a short interview, a little bit more context setting, I think it's important to just double-click on the weather. It looks like it's expected to be about 40 degrees Fahrenheit up at the Mayer High School early tomorrow. So it'll
Better
be
than the snow
cool.
we had last year.
Yeah, I was going to say the story of last year's race was really like the snow up there in the high country, the massively delayed start. It was amazing that everything went off without a hitch under those circumstances. But it's going to be different this year. It seems like pretty pleasant conditions. Maybe Corinne and Zach, if you were thinking about this race, how would you be approaching it from, the environmental conditions perspective?
I mean, I think to Zach's point earlier, none of us, I mean, there are a few athletes in the elite field who obviously train in warmer climates, who are based here locally or are coming down from Flagstaff, for example. But many of us, like I live in Seattle and it's been cold by Seattle standards for 4 weeks. Like I would feel like I'm melting tomorrow. And so I do think it's really important. We saw Keely execute on this super, super well 2 years ago, in which she treated Black Canyon like Western States. And she was leaving aid stations with like the world's largest ice bandana filled up. And so even if it's not quote unquote record temperatures, like it is warm in comparison to where most of you come from, to where most of the elites are coming from as well. And so I think that your best friend is using cooling out there. We're in a dry environment. Evaporative cooling is super, super effective. And so ice is your friend, even if it feels kind of silly because it might only be 60 degrees.
Yeah, so like when you leave Hidden Treasure Aid Station and you're making your way towards Gloriana, like that section, you're running through a lot of like black rock. Like these are the Black Canyons. I don't know if anyone put that together, but it is going to absorb a whole lot of heat and it will dissipate that heat throughout the day. So, I mean, I remember the few times I've been out here and running, it might not be ambient temperature very warm, but once you drop into those rocks, you can feel the heat kind of coming up from them. So even for Arizona standards, not a record year, but it's just like Western States. It's a cold year at Western States. It's still a pretty hot day out there. So you do have to take care of yourselves. You have to stay on top of your hydration, your electrolytes, all that kind of normal stuff. But I would be staying wet early in the day.
To that end, this is not necessarily a note for covering the front of the race, the elites, but for those of you who are running this race for the first time, do not fall into the trap. The trap is the most enjoyable stretch of trail that you'll ever find in your entire life. From the first aid station, Antelope Mesa, to the second one, Hidden Treasure, it's about a 7-mile straight downhill, about 1,500 feet of drop. You're going to look down at your watch, and for me, when I look down and I see I'm running like a 7:45, 7:30 and 100K, I know that I'm doing wrong. You're going to do it. Be careful. Just do not fall into the trap. And it's a trap because it's a wonderful feeling. You feel like you're on top of the world. Oh, I can sustain this. Well, when it gets to be about 75 degrees, the trap is going to come back and bite you.
Yeah, Ryan and I were having a conversation on the drive over here. He's like, yeah, I really just want to run the 50K because that trail is just, so, one of you said, but also the exposure, right? And I didn't fully close the loop. It's a high of 74 degrees expected at New River there at the finish line. So between 40 degrees in the morning, 74 degrees midday, it will be a bit of a, just a spread in terms of the temperatures that people are going to be experiencing.
I have a good friend who kind of sounds like Yogi Berra, in which she on sunny runs will look to me and say, wow, the sun is hot. And that is what it will be like tomorrow. The sun is hot. If you have run in Arizona, there is no shade. And so while, again, the ambient temperature of 74 is not crazy, it's still a big temperature swing for most of us, and the sun is, in fact, very, very warm.
Yeah.
Also consider the fact that we are going from a cool, very cool morning. It lulls you into this false sense of, oh, it's not that hot, until all of a sudden your head's baking and you can feel your heartbeat through your ears.
Yeah.
That's how this course gets you. So this is what I love about Black Canyon and why it is such an incredible course is it brings out a stacked field, right? And we're going to get to that here in a few minutes. It is a very fast course overall, and it plays to everybody's strengths. You have a back end that's really strong, you have a front end that's really fast, but the amount of like just carnage that goes on here because of the speed, the traps, all the traps. There's the cool start with a really hot finish. There's the downhill that will blow your legs, and you can be lulled in this false sense of like a smooth 5-minute mile, and it's just like it doesn't happen.
Right.
Like it will all catch up to you by the end of the day. So the little mistakes you make between mile 1 and 20, you're going to pay for them in the last 20 miles.
Maybe final thought before we bring Jamil up here. As I mentioned, about 61 miles, about 6,000 feet of climbing, a net downhill course. Of course, one of the stories of the weekend are the golden tickets. And this race course, at least the race profile, definitely mimics a certain Western States course. And there is precedent of people who perform well here also perform well on the Western States course at the end of June. So that's a little teaser for 4 months from now. If we could please bring up the king of Chipotle, Mr. Jamil Curry.
Look at him move. This is the most I've seen him move all week at work.
That was spry. You like hopped up the stairs.
Absolute celebrity. Jamil, how are your legs feeling, buddy?
I'm a bit beat up.
How
We
many
were-
miles total was it?
I mean, I did over 700 miles in January. So it was just pure indulgence.
Are we allowed to talk about the goal that you're setting for yourself that you and I just talked about before we went live here?
God. Sure. Why not?
Jamil is in at both the Western States 100 and the Hard Rock 100. Jamil, the record is held by an icon in ultra running history. Are you putting her on notice here?
Man, you're putting me on the spot here. I mean, dream big, right? I think I've got a bit of a base now to work off of, and hopefully I can, show up not injured in the next few weeks and put some miles in. But there's a carrot out there. There is a record for doing both those races in the fastest time. We'll see what I can do.
Held by Courtney Dauwalter, if that wasn't clear.
And I don't know if I have any business saying I could go after one of her records, but
I mean,
why
the
not?
base, you just set a huge base in January, like you said. It's
No
foregone
reason not to
conclusion.
recover with all the extra guac.
Yeah.
That's right.
I was going to say, you're also signed up for the 50K on Sunday, and I have to imagine that maybe if your goal is to not be injured come Western States and Hard Rock, that the 50K might not be happening on Sunday.
I think I'm going to be a DNS.
Adjust your fantasy teams accordingly there. Jamil, let's talk about the significance of Black Canyon in the whole Aravaipa ecosystem. I went back and looked. 2014 was the first year, 42 finishers. This year, there's more than 1,700 starters. This race has become an absolute phenomenon. Just talk about watching it grow from that initial seed to what it is now.
Yeah, it's truly amazing to see what this event has become, and now we're here sitting in an amazing venue right across the street from the course, doing preview shows and everything. It's quite amazing to see. I mean, when we dreamed up this course and initially scouted it, like the one thing I knew is that this race course would be an instant classic. And I think we can kind of say that now, that it is a classic. It's weird to say it will become one when it was nothing at that time, but it's truly at its core an amazing area trail event, and for it to have evolved into what it was, where it's one of the most competitive races, that so many amazing people, athletes, everyone comes in for this event, and it's such a community event, is a dream come true for me and for Aravaipa.
I was going to say, I'd like to talk a little bit about a change to the race this year, where we've got a 50K. Last year was a 60K, kind of changing our finish location, not changing our finish location, but just kind of like maybe simplifying things. Talk about making the decision as a team to alter that race.
Yeah, well, we lost our Rock Springs parking lot, which was our 60K finish line and our major aid station in Black Canyon City for so many years. And it's nice to see that they're actually moving dirt if you peeked your head over there. Because I think last year at this time when we lost access, it was just the same old parking lot. So it was a little frustrating, but nice to see that they are developing, I believe, an RV park out there on that. So, I mean, that'll be a great amenity. But it made a lot of sense once we saw where the mileage lined up at the 50K mark. Since it was already out there that it was a 60K, we wanted to keep that last year, but I think it was just kind of a natural progression to turn it into a 50K for this year.
Also an adjustment this year, the World Trail Majors. I mean, this is year number 2 of the series, but they've added the short series, of which the 50K is a part of it. Anything you want to share about year 2 of the World Trail Majors, Black Canyon's position within it, and especially this expansion to short distance?
Yeah, I think it's nice that everyone who lines up this weekend will be partaking in a World Trail Majors event, even with the 50K. So just a testament to, I think this event and World Trail Majors, I think it's great.
Speaking of adjustments, I ran this race for the first time, the 60K, back in 2016, and then I ran the 100K the following 4 years. The first 3 years I ran the 100K, I ran to 3 different finish lines, because I ran the first year that I ran was the famous 2017 year, the out and back, where we had to go all the way back up to Mayer High School. The second year we had the natural Emory Henderson finish, and then the third year we were actually finishing at Black Canyon City. Can you talk about what it's like, I guess maybe the physical geography, like having to roll with the punches when the weather just completely goes awry for you?
Yeah, well, and even earlier than that, I think the first few years of this event was very hot. Like we had just a string of very hot years. but yeah, the actual Black Canyon area, the Agua Fria River, which cuts through and has made the Black Canyon, you know, it can become very dangerous with the flooding, and you know, we've seen it a couple different times now. So yeah, we've got a number of backup plans in place now. Hopefully we'll never have to climb all the way back up to Mayor High, and we can avoid that in the future. That was quite the year. But yeah, this year it's looking good to go.
Jamil, obviously, Jubilee Page is the real race director of Black Canyon now, and she was potentially going to be joining us on the show here, and she did at the Javelina 100, where she gave us like a little bit of a race director update. We obviously have a lot of runners here in the audience. Is there any race director report that you need to pass on in Jubilee's absence?
Put me on the spot here. I think I listened to the race briefing. Yeah, I think all that information is out there, so I would definitely push people towards the race briefing that Jubilee did and the runner guide. I don't think I have much to ask. Is that we have text message updates to the athletes going out, and you know, for an event this large and with the dynamic nature, we learned last year it's essential with race day comms. Like, we didn't have that last year, and it was a huge weakness for us when we had all that information to get out direct to the people that needed it, and we didn't have a way. So it's just a great peace of mind for us knowing that we can directly get to every runner if for some reason there is a change that is made.
Yeah, no telephone trees this year, which is really nice for everyone.
Yeah, that was a huge surprise. I got one of those texts the other day because I'm doing the 50K and basically saying, hey, this is going to be the channel through which we communicate. I thought that was a fantastic
Yeah, and it
adjustment.
gives a lifeline if there is an issue on course. There's, you know, it's already in your phone, in your text message. You can just reply right back to that, and we can get attentive service to you.
I just drove past the Deep Canyon Ranch aid station on my way in here,
It
and
looks dope.
or the people who are running it, like if you could maybe give a shout out to some of the staff and the volunteers, or just give us a better sense of what it takes to put the event on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge team. I think our team is bigger than ever this year. We've realized we need more help, and we brought in more help, and that's been really great. I haven't been over there yet, actually, but I know that it's a, you know, they've created a village in a city, you know, somewhat similar to Javelina, where it is a lot of tents. And you know, last year was our first year out there, so we learned some things, and hopefully it flows better this year. But yeah, I mean, shout out to our entire team, the volunteers. You know, we've been out all week marking trail, accessing remote aid stations. The amount of prep at our office nearby is crazy. Just box trucks lined up all over the place. So
Amazing. Anybody else have any final questions for Jamil? If not, I can close this down. I'd love for you to just also talk about Mountain Outpost, man. Like, it started here. I think it was 2021 or 2022 was the first year you live streamed.
2021.
I mean, it's just incredible to see the impact that has had too. And so you could give a shout out. I know the studio is over there at Deep Canyon Ranch, but maybe give us a sense too about how that's evolved over the last few years, and you know what value it's brought to the Aravaipa ecosystem and the sport in general.
Yeah, I mean, it all started, it was COVID era, and Yavapai County almost shut the race down in 2021. We worked out an agreement with them, but we could have no crew, no pacers in Yavapai County, which runs all the way to the event. And, you know, for it being a golden ticket race, I said that's not acceptable. You know, we've got to get eyes on the race course, and we've got to produce a live stream that can share this event with the world. And, you know, shout out to partner in crime, Skylar Hall over here. He sat with me all day long in the Phoenix studio while everyone was having fun out here on the trail. And, you know, we were able to interact with the online community and bring it. And it's amazing to see how it's involved now, you know, even working with you with both of you throughout the year, everyone up here to make these broadcasts bring to life. You know, now we're doing Western States, and it's been a wild ride so far. It's been a lot of fun to do.
So that year I was out on the course doing coverage, and I was at Table Mesa. Given that was the first opportunity for people to be able to interact with their runners, that was the biggest rager I've ever seen at a trail race ever. The amount of people,
Bigger
like you
than
had to park.
Jackass Junction?
Oh yeah, it was.
No.
Well, you could have more people out there. There were probably in excess of 400, 500 people out there at that aid station just dying to get
When
into.
they probably all showed up early because they had nowhere else to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
They're just
absolutely
camped
crazy.
out.
Like you had to
Bring
park
your
a
cooler.
mile down the road at Table Mesa, which if you've ever been out there, like there's nothing out there except when we're there. And it was one of the most amazing things I've seen because out of whole cloth, this entire village and party had been set up.
Mountain Outpost, one of the great things to actually emerge from the COVID era. Mr. Jamil Curry, before we go, I just want to say, Corinne and I were talking about this earlier. Not only did you start Aravaipa, not only did you invent live streaming, you also filmed the iconic Miller versus Hawks video, which I think for all of us has
Started it
made us
all.
want to run through a brick wall. But you've just done so much for the sport, and we're grateful that you still jump up on stage with us, and we can pull you out of the broadcast studio over there. So, and you also are the king of Chipotle now. Come on, unbelievable!
Thank you.
Jamil Curry, everybody. How good was that, guys?
I mean, legend of not only the sport, the whole community. One thing I do love about, personally working with Jamil and with Aravaipa is I've always known this as an athlete, as like one of the runners who runs the races, that they put a lot of attention to detail and they want to make the best event possible. But even things like, and this
Well, it's
is
the whole family. Like I got to meet Jamil's mom last year when we were doing
Patty's the best.
the Mount Fuji coverage, and it made my whole weekend.
now I understand like why Jamil is the way he is, like now having worked here, and I love it. Messages.
Yeah.
One thing happens, it's like never again. We're gonna get better. Every single live stream is the exact same way. It's gonna get better. Like
Awesome.
as we've noticed with Chipotle, anything Jamil does is over the
He
top.
wins. All right.
So,
When people ask what it's like to work for Aravaipa, work for Mountain Outpost, work for Jamil, I always say the same thing. I said, the nice thing is that you're working for somebody who would never ask you to do anything he wouldn't do himself. The problem is that man will literally do anything.
yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I've seen him working out in an aid station trying to get things ready at 3 a.m. before a small race here in town. Like he's everywhere. So
Unbelievable.
And what he's built here is an incredible race.
We're working on delegating.
Okay,
Let's-
great segue. Great segue. Big shout out to
Yes.
Jamil. Really grateful you would join the show here today. Let's start our preview officially for the 100K with the women. I'm going to just throw something out there. You guys can tell me if you agree or disagree, okay? This is just my personal perspective. I see the winner of tomorrow's race coming from this group, okay? Mary Denholm, Riley Brady, Heather Jackson, Lauren Puretz, or MK Sullivan. I'm calling those 5 the favorites in the women's race. Who wants to get us started? Corinne, am I smart or dumb?
I mean, you're not wrong, but you're maybe not right. And that is why we work so well together. I mean, if I scroll down this list, and we're not just going to name everyone because you guys can read about it online as well. But there, I think, are 15 plus women who could get a golden ticket tomorrow. Obviously, there are 3 golden tickets on the line for men and for women. It can roll down to 6. The women's race is unique in the sense that there are 3 women already in the race who already are in Western states. Heather Jackson, Riley Brady, and Shea Aquilano. Shea recently got in through the Western States Lottery, which we love. So that will change the race dynamic, and really rolling down to that 6th place could be a reality. I think adding to that list, without naming everyone, I'd include Abby Hall, who is virtually local. She splits her time between Flagstaff and Fountain Hills, Arizona, so she knows these trails. Coming back from a big injury, very fit. Katie Asmuth as well in my list, and then a Chinese athlete who many might not know or know well, Lin Chen, has been here for a couple of weeks training. She was about to have the breakthrough of her life at Western States last June, and then she literally tore all of the skin off the bottom of both of her feet and had to be carried out of the Rucky Chucky aid station. She could not walk the next day. She came back and finished 4th at UTMB. The Chinese athletes run hard at the front and charge the whole time, and she has the talent to back it up. And so I would also add any of those names into that conversation as well.
Zach, favorites for tomorrow on the women's side.
Name more names.
I mean, you've already named so many, and I have so much respect for any of these ladies that are towing the line tomorrow. And one of the things that I've noticed at Black Canyon, I'm thinking 2 years ago, what happened when we had a name stacked list and our podium, our top 3, nobody called out? I think that Black Canyon is a race that the dark horses come to win. And with that being said, I'm just going to put everybody on notice. Look for a name, Sarah Alabin out of Trout Lake, Washington. That is someone who you will see in the front tomorrow.
I've heard that she is very, very fit. Just to piggyback on that too, a name that was brought to my attention recently, this will be the biggest race they've ever run in a big way, is Sawyer Magnet out of the East Coast, I think officially, and I will learn how to say your last name before tomorrow. But has won big on the East Coast, threw down a stupid fast time at the White River 50 mile outside of my hometown in August of 2013, but I think could be on a real burner here and is training and living out of Prescott, I believe. So also very familiar with these trails, which is a secret weapon.
Chris, jump in here.
Well, I think that one of the things about this race that blows my mind is I'm going through the field and trying to figure out who I think is going to come out with these golden tickets, is that I was starting to pare my list down by simply who is better at the even longer stuff and thinking like maybe those people don't have enough real estate to get it done. Here's looking at you, Annie Hughes and Tara Dower. Like names like that were kind of nudged off my list simply because I'm looking for the people who I think are probably, not necessarily faster at the shorter, but just not as primed for that 100-mile distance. So as weird as it sounds, I don't know if that's a good way to figure it out or a bad way to figure it out, but that's how I was looking at it.
No, but I love this because we talk about range all the time and how much we love range. And I'm like, yeah, Jim can win the VK and then win Western States. And we're like, ooh, does Tara Dower have range? He's in that boat too, a phenomenal 200-mile runner. But they are dropping down, in air quotes, to just 100K, which is also a dumb saying, just before anything in ultra and trail is silly. But I am curious to see what that means tomorrow because I know they're talented. I know they're fast. I know that Tara Dower was doing like VO2 max style workouts before going out on the AT. She ran a really good back half of the race here last year. She has experience in this trail. She also will probably be the bloodiest runner at some point in time because
undoubtedly
she will go down at some point, and I'm allowed to say that, I'm pretty sure. But like she is someone that I wouldn't count out, and if we have a Craig Hunt situation where we have someone running the fastest back 20K, it could come from someone like Tara Dower.
Absolutely. I do want to throw one more name out there.
More names.
One more name. Our friends from the Great White North, our Canadian contingency that always comes down and throws down. Someone just set a course record at Run Rabbit Run last year. Emily Mann. Let's not forget about her. She's quiet. She's just one of the nicest, most kind people ever, but when it comes to throwing down and shredding trail, like she knows what she's doing.
So
and
Canadian, the nicest person.
And
She'll
Sarah
pass you and
Bergeron
say
LaRoche
sorry.
too, also Canadian. Couple comments from me. One thing that I think is important is people who have performed well here. We've mentioned Heather Jackson and Lauren Puretz. The last 2 years have both been golden ticket recipients here at Black Canyon. Both are back. Both are Masters runners, too.
Lauren
in fact,
didn't even know that she was in golden ticket position, I think. Like, we
Right.
surprised her
Yep.
at the finish line.
Yeah, she passed me and my runner at like mile 58 last year.
If you go back and watch the live stream, you can see her realization when she's like, oh, blank, I got a golden
You
ticket.
actually got
it. was so cool.
Lauren Puretz was the world champion for Masters trail running last year. So Lauren Puretz knows how to run here at Black Canyon, as does Heather Jackson. One thing that I also think is important is momentum, right? Riley Brady at Javelina last October, one of the best performances in North
So
American
fast.
ultra running last year. Riley Brady coming back here to Black Canyon. Also Mary Denholm, second place to Rachel Drake at JFK 50, running one of the fastest times at the oldest ultramarathon in the United States. Both of them carrying momentum, which I think is really important.
Yeah, so I think this is Riley's 5th or 6th time running at Black Canyon. I don't think they've finished better than 5th, but they've run on similar terrain so darn well. So I've got all my fingers and toes crossed that
I'm
it comes
hoping she
together.
parlays the Javelina into a Black Canyon and has a fantastic day.
Yeah.
I really hope they do.
Well, here's the thing, too, with a runner like Riley, right? They are super talented on this terrain, super fast, but there's no pressure on them
Yep.
to have the perfect day tomorrow. They're already in Western States. Like, check.
I
I
remember
have
talking to John Ray about that last year, too. It didn't ultimately play in his favor, but it changed the way he was approaching the race psychologically and strategically.
I do have to admit that is another thing that kind of nudges its way in when I'm trying to handicap a race like this. If somebody's already got that Western States ticket and things are not necessarily going their way, or if they're like at a kind of a flashpoint in their race, Are they really going to try and maintain or sell out to win Black Canyon and potentially put the bigger prize in jeopardy? That's one of the things that I had to think about when I was trying to figure out where everybody was going to end up.
So again, we just rattled off a bunch of names here. One final comment from me, and then you guys can add any closing comments. MK Sullivan is another athlete who has gotten a golden ticket. Thornley, hey, I'm not going to do it this year. We'll see if MK finishes in that golden ticket position, whether or not she will actually accept that golden ticket to Western States next year. Zach mentioned a couple dark horses. I just want to add Jane Mouse from Boulder, Colorado. I met her at a Cirque Series race last summer. I think she's got all the tools it takes to be in that golden ticket contention. In fact, she's in my Free Trail Fantasy ballot at the moment now. We also have Sylvia Abel, Lindsay Allison, Christine Mascarenas, a bunch of others.
I think Sylvie might be one of the notable drops. I don't think Sylvia Abel is here.
Another dark horse, Brianna Grigsby, local Air Viper Racing team member, has multiple top 10 finishes here at Black Canyon. Finished, I believe, 5th was her high water mark here 2 years ago. You know, somebody, if you're finishing top 5, top 7, then you're definitely in the discussion.
Yeah. Okay, great. Let's transition to the men. Before we do that, I just want to say a big thank you to Hoka. I didn't do that at the beginning of the show. Thank you to Hoka for presenting the Black Canyon race weekend, all the media and event coverage that we're going to be doing throughout race weekend. Corinne Malcolm, a new member of Team Hoka and also a contributor to that sports marketing department. Appreciate all their investment in our sport. Thank you. Okay, men's preview. I listed the favorites on the women's side. I'm going to go out on a limb. You guys can tell me if you agree or disagree. It seems to me the clear favorite on the men's side, Eli Hemming, again, carrying a ton of momentum out of 2024 here into his 100K debut. Zach, get us started.
Man, you know, I got to witness his race at JFK. You know, we were there doing the live stream and, you know, talking to him prior to. He was just ready to throw down. Said he had a little bit of a tummy ache out on the tow path there. And when I saw him pick up his packet 2 days ago, he said that he's prepared to have no more tummy aches. So he is ready. He's fit. He is my personal favorite. Just on a personal level, he's just a stand-up guy. If any of you have met him, you guys would know what I'm talking about. Both him and Tabor are absolutely amazing. But I think that there are a handful of others. I mean, let's talk about Hans Troyer. Let's talk about Craig Hunt. Like, the list goes on. I love my dark horses. Makai Clemens.
Before we get to them, I think it's important to just restate again. This is his 100K debut, Eli Hemming, coming off of winning OCC, the world final at 50K. I just think it's rare to come into a race of this caliber as a 100K debut as one of, if not the favorite in the race. Corinne, anything you want to add on Eli?
I mean, I'm really excited to watch him.
He also, we should say, I'm sorry to interrupt, he won the 60K last year before they transitioned to the 50K by 30 minutes. So he has been on the course. He knows the course.
Yeah, and that was like on a 130-mile week or something too. Like he did not taper for it. It was just like a fun training week out of the snow of Colorado. I think that Eli Hemming, I mean, getting to watch like kind of inside baseball, watch those guys train, it's super, super impressive. And he is a super grounded young professional in that sense. He hasn't been in the sport of trail and ultra for all that long, but he runs like a veteran, which I really appreciate. I also love that his take here is that he wants to race the most competitive fields possible. That's why he's here. And we won't actually be able to hear from him on the elite panel today because he's picking up a pacer. So, but I'm curious, right? He's the one guy on my list where I'm like, does Eli Hemming take a golden ticket? Is he going all the way to the 100-mile distance this year if he gets a golden ticket? Like, that's a lot to ask. But again, if the man wants to race the most competitive fields possible, like this would be a pretty good year to do Western States.
Please take the ticket.
Please take the ticket.
I would love to see him take the ticket, but this kind of reminds me of Keely Henniger when she outright won and then was just like, no thanks. Like I'm not ready for the 100-miler. So when we talk about it being his first 100K, that's not a concern for me with him. Typically it might be, but when you have someone who is so professional and has spent years just slowly building himself up the sport, then I'm less concerned for it being his first 100K. I mean, his first 50K he smashed, so I'm not super worried about him stepping up to the 100K distance.
Yeah. Chris, anything you want to add here?
Yeah, I'm kind of not thinking that direction. I'm thinking that experience at this course tends to pay off. We saw it last year with Hayden Hawks, and I think that we might be we'd be remiss if we didn't put Jupiter Carrera Casas right alongside
the
him.
Story of the 2024
Yeah,
Black Canyon.
and you know what? I had to change the way I cover races after that because nobody, at least that I knew, had any idea what he was going to do out there. And I had a friend who actually texted me, who is the race director of the Caballo Blanco ultramarathon in Mexico, Michael Miller. And Michael sends me a message like early in the morning. He's like, "Oh, you watch out for this Jupiter guy." I'm like, "All right, yeah, well, whatever." And all of a sudden, like, 30 miles in, I'm looking for that text and like, oh my goodness, this is the guy he was talking about. And, he ran a 7:39 here, finished just a handful of minutes behind Hayden Hawks. And I am all for agreement that Eli Hemming is going to be one of the things that I watch very closely tomorrow. But Jupiter, I feel like, is my prohibitive favorite at this point.
I mean, he's also being joined by his brother, who I think is also his coach, who will be racing tomorrow as well. So really curious, and who I know is also very fast. So very curious to see what that looks like. Jupiter also ran in like very, very like crazy carbon road shoes last year, where I was like, you can run in a road shoe on parts of this, but man, that's a lot of stack height for some of those rocks. But I mean, I think adding to that list, right, we've got Seth Ruling, who is incredibly talented. I think that, it could be his day. You've got Craig Hunt with a lot of experience. You've got Tim Tollefson with a lot of experience. I think it'd be hard to count someone like Tim out. Didn't have his day that he wanted here last year, still ran exceptionally fast. So those are men that I'm putting in contention, who I also think are all capable of front running this race, because I do think we're going to see front running happening tomorrow. Hans Troyer could be in that mix as well. Mackay Clemens, who you all brought up. Ryan Raff, who was the only guy to beat David Roach last year at the
Crown King.
There we go, Crown King 50K. Thanks, boys.
This leads to something I wanted to talk about, which is the dynamic of the race, right? And what we have seen in both the men's and women's races, but especially in the men's races in recent years, is pack running, especially early in those fast miles, mostly downhill. And we do have a pack of front runners in the race here. People like Eli, Jupiter, Seth Ruling, Hans Troyer. Like, it'll be interesting to see who goes in that breakout group.
Absolutely. I mean, I reflecting back to the year that I ran in the mid-teens. It was like a couple years into the race, and there was a pretty solid stacked field going for a ticket, right? And I think there was kind of like an unspoken like gentleman's agreement to like, hey, let's hit the single track and let's bide our time until we really start to tear each other apart.
That's not going to happen.
That doesn't happen anymore. There's only one way to get a golden ticket, which is what most everybody's goal is here. And if it's not their goal is to win, period. Right. So, and it is to go.
Didn't put himself in the mix early enough, but felt like he had a solid day, but the young guys just got away from him and he couldn't reel him back in. And then we remember he ended up dropping out of UTMB, unfortunately, but in the early miles at UTMB, Tim was in the mix, like had his nose at the front of the pack. I know he wants to get into the Western States 100. Tim Tollefson, of course, one of the most experienced athletes in the field, and he can race in multiple different styles. I suspect we'll probably see him in that front pack.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I was going to say, we also have two Chinese athletes in the race this year who are notable front runners. Yu Pei Quan and Luau
Canho
are both in the race. One of those men was in the mix early last year, I think all the way through one of the last aid stations, and then like had vision issues, which can happen. You can like basically inflame your cornea and you like can't see well. So dropped out of the race late, but had been in that top 5 mix and that golden ticket hunt in a big way. So I do think that is something to be aware of, that we do have a lot of international flair actually in the race, who I do think will factor in, particularly in the first half, and the second half will be telling. Notable absent on the men's side, it seems like Trayson Knott might also.
Last year, 6th place.
Yes, who was in that hard charging group of men, who I think there was like 3 minutes between 4th and 11th or something insane. And then the other piece of that picture includes, oh man, my brain is completely blank. But yeah, just like that, like, Trayson is out and Anthony Costales, that's where I was going, is also out of the race this year. And
2023 champ.
And I do think Anthony is a person who could change that dynamic in the sense of like who in this men's field isn't a front runner, who might be more of not a sit and kick by any means, but a little bit more patient, right? And so I think Anthony being absent in this field actually changes some of that dynamic a bit.
I'm going to completely contradict myself where I mentioned that Jupiter was my favorite for the race. One of the things I also love about Black Canyon is that it is a coming out party for somebody like Jupiter last year. We also saw that Trueheart Brown in 2022, Juan Moran in 2017, golden ticket winners that we weren't familiar with. And a name that has gotten some run, at least amongst people locally and people who are paying really close attention to this race, is Jordan Bramblett. And Jordan Bramblett is a local runner to Prescott. I believe he's the cross-country coach at Embry-Riddle. And he's only 27 years old. And he's only got a handful of results in ultra sign-up. But his most recent race here was at the Santan Scramble 50K, where he set a course record by 14 minutes over the previous course record holder, a guy by the name of Charlie Ware. And and it's a 3-looped race. And two of his loops were the 2 fastest for the entire day, including the people who were running shorter distances. He ran a Mesquite Canyon 50K last year that was only 3.5 minutes behind Jim Walmsley's personal best on that course. So this is a guy, Jordan Bramblett, that I'm potentially thinking could be this year's coming out party for the 100K.
Holy smokes.
I
that's
just
a good
figured out
take.
who my Anthony replacement is.
Go ahead.
Blake Slatengren.
Awesome.
Right? If you're talking about the guys who might not be like charging from the gun, but who would be dangerous to have chasing you in the back 20K or so, Blake Slatengren's definitely in that mix. He nearly clipped Chris Myers at the finish line. I think they were coming onto the track virtually together at Western States last year to finish 10th and 11th. He also got a golden ticket into Western States last year by finishing second in a hard charging finish at the Javelina 100 mile the previous October, in which
Ran under 13 hours.
he negative split his like back 2 loops of the Javelina course. Like Nick Curry does that, I think, but basically no one else.
Unreal.
And so Blake is a person that I would not want chasing me, and anyone from Cowgill will agree with us, but I would not want Blake chasing me in the final 20K of any race.
Okay, couple closing comments for me here. As I mentioned with the women's race, it is also important. Canyon. Jared Hazen back in the field. Mark Hammond back in the field. You mentioned Scotty Trayer earlier. Those 3 guys have the experience, know what it takes to get a golden ticket. Another name I just wanted to drop on the audience here, Cole Campbell from Spring Creek, Nevada. I met this 25-year-old phenom at the USATF 50K championship, which took place on my home trails in Marin County. He dominated the field that day. I think he's the type of character who could run himself into a golden ticket here this weekend.
You can dig pretty deep into the well when you're young and you're naive.
25. Holy smokes. You mentioned our Chinese athletes. Big shout out to Canada, the Great White North. You mentioned on the women's side, Dave Stevens and Elliot Carden, the Canadian athletes on the men's side.
Elliot ran amazing at Gorge last year. So that's where people, if you watched our live stream there, Elliot Carden would be one of our top contenders at the Gorge 100K.
Awesome. All right, let's get to our predictions. I think we got Brett Hornig and Corinne Chalvoy in the audience who are also going to contribute their picks. Brett and Corinne are going to be your on-course correspondents. So for those who are watching the live stream, get used to their faces and
Skylar,
voices.
let's not forget Skylar.
And Skylar? Oh, yes.
He's in
Skylar.
studio with me.
Our guy. Run
tomorrow
flat,
afternoon.
stay low, buddy. All right, so just to restate, course records. 7:30, Hayden Hawks from 2024 on the men's side. 8:45, Keely Henninger. And finishing times, I can get us started here, okay? All right, I picked on the women's side, Mary Denholm, Jane Mouse. That's my big upset pick. Riley Brady. In third, Riley Brady's ticket, I have dropping down to Sylvie Abel, who you are suspecting is a scratch.
I don't think that Sylvie's here.
In which case, I have it dropping down to Heather Jackson, who already has a ticket. In which case, it'll bump down to whoever finishes 6th. That's my women's ballot. Men's side, I was thinking about understanding that most people are probably going to pick Eli. I was trying to think of a clever upset, and then I thought, no, I think Eli's going to win, so I'm going to pick Eli. And I'm predicting 7:35 for the men, 8:40.
Okay, I like that, but I'm going to disagree, as we tend to. Okay, so on my women's side, I have just heartbreaks everywhere because the ticket's not going to roll down because the top 3 women are going to take the tickets. And my top 3 women who are not listening to this, ideally, are MK Sullivan, Lynn Chen, and Abby Hall, with Katie Asmuth and Mary Denholm chasing in 4th and 5th. I know, drama. And then on the men's side, I have Craig Hunt because I think he has learned and is so fit and so smart, and I am just like rooting for it to happen. Winning, Seth Ruling putting together a really good day, finishing second. Eli Hemming finishing third. Question mark is, does Eli Hemming take the ticket? No one knows. I have Ryan Raff in fourth. Does Ryan Raff want the ticket? That's a huge jump in distance for him too. No one knows, which means the ticket would then roll to Tim Tollefson.
Let's go.
Wow. I was unprepared for the 5 deep.
But I will say, okay, I don't think the men's course record is going down, but I do think the women's course record is going to duck under Keeley's time. Not by a lot, but I do think that in order to chase those podium spots, our women's field is going to set up a lot like our men's field last year, where it's going to be really tight, i.e., like someone might win by a couple minutes, like 7 to 8 minutes, but then it's going to be like boom, 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 boom for the rest of the top 6.
Well, I have to say that I think that there is a slew of ladies that are going to head on over to the Black Canyon Saloon, pull up a NAR stool seat, and they're going to trade shot for shot until only one is standing. We're going back to our college days on this. I love the dark horse here. I love it. I think that you have a little something more to prove. You're running with a chip on your shoulder. You're kind of running to prove yourself and get that ticket and get that notoriety, and all that work is kind of coming to the top. That can help you run a little deeper. And I think we're going to see Sarah Alabin. That's who I'm putting down for our winner.
That
I have
is
it very well. She's going to be her to death. She's amazing. This is kind of her coming back race. She's fit. She's ready to go. And it's so hard to pick, but I'm going to have to go with MK Sullivan. I think that's where we're going to be. And I think that we have a slew of ladies that are going to be very, very close, but those are going to be the 3 left standing at the end of the day. Men's field. I mean, y'all know where I'm going first and foremost. Eli Hemming. I'm going to go with him. He's the guy to beat, in my opinion. But again, the dark horse story, Makai Clemens. I'm going to say it here. I've been waiting for this kid to have his breakout race for a while. It's kind of never worked out with his training schedule and racing schedule, but I think this is where he does it. He's familiar with this course. He's familiar with the Black Canyon races. He's done very well in the past in the 60K. So I'm gonna go with him, and then it's gonna come down to a knife fight. And I think that even though the aerodynamics are not working in his favor, Tim Tollefson is going to use that magical head of hair to push himself into a 3rd place. I think he's hungry. I think he's fit. I think he's ready. And as we've discussed before, he's got a range of speeds he gets to play with. So Chico State has proven to be really good on this course.
True.
Let's go, Tim Tollefson.
Chico.
Well, in the women's race, sometimes the field is so stacked that you have to come up with the most irrational ways to decide your picks. And this is kind of an irrational, rational thing. And I've got MK Sullivan taking it down. And the reason why is that I feel like MK's career arc to this point mirrors very closely somebody else's who is achieving wild success right now. Moving up the ladder slower than maybe we want them to. Like, remember 2017 Hayden Hawks. Like, we all wanted Hayden to jump up to Western States and to start to attack that 100-mile distance. MK seemed obviously earning the opportunity to take a ticket at Canyons. Nope, not quite ready for it. You know, I think that that's the kind of approach that is MK Sullivan. So I think that this is the opportunity where she is going to take that ticket. And second, I've got Katie Asmuth. We barely talked about her on this preview show, and you talked about one of the great American women ultra runners right now. In 3rd place, I've got Heather Jackson. I think that under normal circumstances, talking about irrational rationale, maybe Heather would have, potentially been higher in my finisher list had she needed the ticket. In 4th place, I've got Lauren Puretz getting that ticket in 4th. And in 5th, I've got Mary Denholm. I mean, speed is speed. And so I think that plays on this Black Canyon course. On the men's side, as I mentioned, I think that Jupiter Carrera-Casas is going to be the winner. If he even runs what he ran last year, that would be a 7:39. I think that would be enough to get it done. In 2nd place, I've got Jordan Bramblett. I think that Jordan is this year's Jupiter. And in 3rd place, I've got Craig Hunt finally getting it done after coming so close on 2 different occasions here. 4th place, just missing out on the ticket, and I might regret this later. I've got Ryan Raff. After Crown King last year, which you alluded to, I had a conversation with David Roche, and David Roche basically could not stop talking about Ryan Raff. Like, he basically said, he's like, this is the next Walmsley. This is the future of American ultra running. He thinks that highly of Ryan Raff. He said he was in awe of watching him run. And so, and I've seen Ryan run because he's done plenty of racing around here, but I think that this is going to be an opportunity for those who haven't seen him to really see what he can do. And in 5th place, I've got Hans Troyer. Hans is, again, the top 5 for me on the men's side is skewing quite younger, and Hans is just another great example of that. I know that after last year, he had a pretty rough go of it for a few weeks. He had some issues after leaving it all out there on the course. And
He was hospitalized for
Yeah.
like 12 days.
yeah, and so hopefully that doesn't happen again, but it shows that he will do whatever it takes to try and get it done. As far as the course records go, I don't think the men's is in jeopardy, but I think the women's is entirely under attack. And it could be by my pick, MK, or it could be one of 5 other people.
Amazing. To our on-course correspondents, you guys want to chime in here?
Tell us we're wrong.
I'm going to go first? Yeah. First, shout out to the 1,000 people that are running this race that are not being mentioned here. Good job, everybody. Congratulations. Okay, what do you guys want to hear?
Give us your podium.
Okay. All right, podium for me on the women's side, and I have to take off like 6 hats because I'm involved in this sport in a lot of ways. And so these are all friends, and I'm just purely going aid station fireball here on the stats. And I'm going to say Mary Denholm is winning this race on the women's side. I think she's back to Dylan's momentum. I think she's got that, and I think she's got the tools needed to run fast on this course. Lynn Chen in second for me, and Riley Brady, which means there will be tickets that roll down potentially to MK Sullivan and Katie Asmuth. I will say on the men's side, Hans, shout out to my husband for this this nickname. Hans the Destroyer Troyer is going to win this
Great
race.
nickname.
He is definitely coming back with a fire to want, to want to line up at Western. So I've got him in first, Craig Hunt in second, Mr. Ryan Raff taking third. Someone who hasn't been mentioned, I don't think, but Air Viper Racing teammate of mine, Ferdinand Clovis, also a very strong runner. I've got him in fourth, and Mr. Scotty Trayer representing all of us masters in fifth.
Course records in danger here, Corinne? Course records?
Yeah, I think on the women's side, yes. I'm going to say no on the men's side.
That's a theme now. Go ahead, Hornig.
All right. Let's see. So for men's podium, I've got Eli Hemming winning the race. Basically, the reason behind that is because I raced him last year in the 60K, and we were going like toe-to-toe until the race started. So he's fast. Mackay Clemens in second place. This is Mackay's time for a golden ticket. He missed a golden ticket by 2 minutes last year at the Canyons 100K, and his training has been looking absolutely supreme on Strava. And then third, another person who's been chasing that golden ticket. It's also their time, Craig Hunt.
I agree with you on 1 and 2. We're just seeing eye to eye there.
All right. Women's race. I'm going Heather Jackson for the win. Nothing to lose. Is she going to try a new race strategy? Probably not. But is it still going to work? Yes.
She's going to lead to Bumblebee for sure.
100%. And how many times has Heather Jackson missed twice? I'm not sure if ever. So Heather Jackson for the win. Abby Hall, second place, getting that golden ticket. Kind of like you guys had said, home field advantage. A lot of time spent on course. That's super valuable. Third, I've got Mary Denholm, as Mary's just been on an absolute heater the last 6 months or so. And then, because one of those golden tickets is rolling down, going to fourth place, I've got Katie Asmuth, because Katie is just a baller, super clutch racer. Multiple top 10 finishes at Western States. You know how much she loves that race.
Oh.
I don't think there's going to be many things holding her back from
One of the
getting back
fastest
in.
times ever at Western
And she
State.
just loves to race.
Yep.
And the fact that she is lining up on a start line is going to carry her really far.
And we'll hear from her in 30 minutes, so don't go anywhere when we're done with this.
Course records on both sides.
Whoa.
Due to the sheer
Spicy.
aggression of the pacing in the first half from Heather and Eli, and then the competition in the second half. It's just
Dry
gonna,
course.
it's just going to force a fast time.
All right. Skylar, bring us home.
All right, I guess we'll start on the men's side. In first place, I have Eli Hemming. Coming off that JFK, learned a lot. And if we're talking about a dry race that's going to involve a lot of front runners, that aid station time needs to be minimized as much as possible. Eli knows how to get that done with his 8-second shoe changes and things like that. Second place, local hero Craig Hunt. Knows the trails well, is a very speedy individual. It's his time. Third place, a champion of all of our hearts, Tim Tollefson. Because, listen, he might be doing the same road stretch in Mammoth over and over, but that means he has the wheels to rip it here in the last 10 miles, and that's what he's going to need to do. Fourth place, I have Mackay, and fifth, I have Ryan Raff. So, again, two folks who are no strangers to golden ticket races or this course specifically, but I think just with the way that the first half of this race is going to shake out, if you're not within 5% of the leader at halfway, you're not going to be in contention for this. So I think it's just going to be a war of attrition. On the women's side, Abby Hall for the win. Knowing this course the way that she does at this point, I think it's hers to lose. Also, I might be a little biased because of the last name. Second place, Tara Dower. Listen, you can say what you want around the FKT and what she's lost. She's a gamer, first and foremost, and she is not going to let the front of this field get away, and she knows the depths of hell and will go deep into them to try to get this ticket. And in third place, Mary Denholm. Talking to her on the Chasing Gold series, I think her head's just in a really good place, and she has the correct expectations of what she can garner from herself on this type of course. Lynn Chen in fourth, just on the outside looking in, and then Katie Asmuth in fifth, but just going to be absolute vibes the entire time. So, either way, it's going to be a great race to watch on the live stream. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and get that bell so that you get the notification when the stream goes up. Course records on both sides. I think the men's course record is going to go down by at least 6 minutes. I think that the women's course record is going to go down by 4.5.
Oh my!
You heard it here first.
Extremely
Some
specific.
prediction.
Vibes galore on the live stream. The vibes are immaculate. Thank you to our on-course correspondent team of Chris Shalvoy, Brett Hornig, Skylar Hall. They're going to be carrying the load on the live stream tomorrow, and we are all going to be better for it, even those of you who are going to be out there running, because we're going to be cheering for you super duper hard. We were planning to talk about the 50K, but I think we're going to probably wrap here. Point is, 50K is also really exciting. It is part of the World Trail Majors now, as they've now produced this World Trail Major short series, so it's going to be exciting racing there on Sunday as well. That is also being broadcast by Mountain Outpost, so even though we're not going to talk about the 50K in any detail here, it's definitely worth a conversation and worth your attention on Sunday. Final thoughts from the panel here before we wrap up?
I'm so excited to be so wrong about my picks because there's so many people to follow in this race. I mean, I hope that I'm right. I love everybody that's on these on my boards, but at the same time, part of the fun of covering this sport like this is learning how wrong you can be, but still have a great time doing it.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I think that we all gave our predictions. We all have our favorites, but we also all know that anything can happen out there. It's going to be an amazing race from start to finish. I commend every athlete that is even towing that line because Black Canyon Ultras is an amazing course, but a very challenging course if you're not ready for it. So we're going to get the views, we're going to get the action, we're going to get the races tomorrow. It's going to be fantastic. And on Sunday, do make sure you tune in for the 50K, short distance racing. We say short as a 50K. We're a weird species. But these shorter races are becoming a lot more stacked these days, and there's a lot of excitement out there. If you think the 100K is going to be exciting, that 50K is going to be on fire.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you guys make our lives easy, or you'll make Skylar's and my life really easy tomorrow in studio, because we get to talk about how exciting the race is. You're gonna make Brett and Corinne's life really challenging because there'll be packs of 10 to 15 runners just blitzing by them. So they will see a blur and we will figure it out in post-production in the studio. But that's really cool. I am so excited to be in this role in this time in the sport where we do have really exciting live racing happening all the way to the finish line. And so just kudos to everyone towing the line tomorrow, from the first finisher that will welcome into the finish line to the people that will be finishing just ahead of 4 a.m. It's still 61 miles, and it's a long way to run.
Heck yeah. Okay, that was so fun, guys. Thank you all so much. A few more thank yous before we go. First, thank you to all of you for coming and joining us here, to everybody who's racing. Have a fantastic journey out there on the course. We're definitely going to be rooting for you. A big thank you to the team behind the scenes, Jamil Curry, Mountain Outpost, the entire team for making this all possible and for welcoming us here as well. Really appreciate it. Thank you to Hoka again for making all this possible. Really couldn't do it without them. To our digital audience, make sure you smash that subscribe button. They're going live at 6:30 a.m. tomorrow. But before that, don't go anywhere, because Corinne is about to host some elite panels with some of the characters that we've just spent the last hour talking about here.
Yeah, I get a quick break, and we're going to have our women on stage from 3 to 3:30, and then our men on stage from 3:30 to 4. We'll ask them some questions, but we'll also have an opportunity for you all to ask them questions. So you got 20 minutes to prep yourselves with some fun ones, but it's gonna be rad, so stick around.
Amazing. For Chris Warren, Zach Marion, Corinne Malcolm, I'm Debo. We'll see you guys out there. Peace out.